This is an historic moment. Never has humanity's future been so closely entwined with environmental concerns. This is urgent. Our climate is changing. Natural resources are running out. Biodiversity is collapsing. Our house is on fire. We all know it. Everyone is talking about it. Now we must act. Practical, high-impact solutions already exist. Now more than ever, we need industrial players to accelerate their deployment. But other problems remain to be solved. We must do all we can to invent the solutions of tomorrow. We must go beyond transition. There is no time left for gradually changing our methods. To reconcile the environment and human development, we must make decisive, difficult and structuring choices. That is why Veolia aspires to a larger, higher, more challenging ambition: ecological transformation. Ecological transformation means genuinely adapting our patterns of production and consumption. It means placing ecology at the heart of every process, every assessment, every decision. It means developing radical, meaningful solutions to meet humanity's existential challenges. Decarbonizing industry to combat climate warming, promoting the circular economy to combat resource depletion, decontaminating the air, water and soil, protecting biodiversity, and creating a more resource-efficient agriculture. None of this would be possible without the coordinated action of all our stakeholders, our 180,000 employees, of course, but also our customers, our shareholders, our partners, and wider society as a whole. We are committed to delivering a multifaceted performance and convinced that economic, social, and environmental concerns must form an indivisible whole. Decontaminating, sanitizing, purifying, recycling, recovering, conserving, and facilitating access to resources, Veolia has always worked to create solutions capable of building a better, more sustainable future for all. Today, we want to become the benchmark company for ecological transformation. Our ambition is huge, but so is our determination. Ecological transformation, that is our purpose.
Right, good morning everyone and welcome to this Green Week partner event, which is kindly supported by Veolia and UDiTE, the European Federation of Local Government Chief Executives. My name is Frederic Simon. I'm the Energy and Environment Editor of EURACTIV, an online media specialized in EU affairs, and I will have the pleasure of moderating today's webinar titled The Ecological Transformation, Global Challenges and Local Solutions. Today's discussion comes just a couple of weeks, in fact, after the European Commission presented its Zero Pollution Action Plan. And the objectives there are quite clear. Europe should be aiming to cut pollution in all areas, whether in soil, air or water, by 2050, and even earlier, if that's possible. So what does it take to get there? What kind of instruments can be put in place to promote a transition to a zero carbon, but also zero pollution economy? These are the topics that we will discuss with our panelists today, starting with Paul Gatt, President of UDiTE, Jessica Polfjärd, a Swedish MEP from the Christian Democrat Party, who will be sending us a pre-recorded video, Karin Kraus, Head of Sustainable Development at Veolia, Sven Saura, also from Veolia, where he is Deputy Director for Recycling, Michaelis Papadogiannakis from the European Commission's DG Environment, José Luis Sanchez, Chief Executive of the TorrePET project in Spain. He will also be sending us a pre-recorded video. Francisco Peñato, Mayor of Torremejía in Spain. He will also be sending a recorded video. And finally, Xavier Boivert, Director General of Services for the Municipality of Mordelles in France. That's in Brittay. Now, thanks to all of you for joining us today. We're going to hear first some presentations from each of the speakers, a number of which will be pre-recorded, as I said, and then some of them will be joining us for a roundtable discussion where we will address today's topic in further detail. So without further ado, let me give the floor to Paul Gatt, President of UDiTE. Paul Gatt, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Frederic. Dear participants, I would like to add my welcome on behalf of UDiTE, a professional European federation for the local authority chief executives in Europe. Today we are going to hear some very good practices that can help us engage actively in the Green Deal for the benefit of our future generations, whilst at the same time help our communities with the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. I, like most professional managers, work for a smaller authority in Europe that needs to constantly innovate and collaborate if we are to find the means to progress effectively. I am speaking to you today from Malta, where we are continually finding new ways to cooperate together and embrace the Green Deal. I, like many professional managers, find myself also at the crossroads between the local politicians, our citizens, and the policies that emanate from central government. Notwithstanding the financial constraints we currently face, we play a vital role in bringing stakeholders together in a dialogue, as no one local or regional organization holds all the competences to make the changes we need as part of the ecological transition. I'm delighted that we are working with VEOLIA on this topic at a key time for local authorities as we prepare for the 2021-27 financing programs and the next generation European Union package. Our partnership is an established one, and we have worked successfully together on a variety of topics in the past, including the circular economy, smart cities, and delivering public-private partnerships. Today, I'm going to leave the floor later in the webinar to my colleague Xavier Boivert, who is the spokesperson for our French Association on the Ecological Transition. Together with his mayor, Mr. Boivert has become a pioneer in France and Europe on this topic. UDiTE is very grateful for this opportunity to share this experience, and I would like to thank colleagues at the European Commission, DG Environment, for giving us all this opportunity. If you would like to meet us with this week, colleagues from UDiTE and VEOLIA will be available in our virtual exhibition, part of a high-level conference. So don't forget to register for the main event and come and meet us. Enjoy the webinar, and I wish you all every success with Green Week 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul Gatt. We can turn now to Jessica Polfjard, Swedish MEP, who sent us a pre-recorded video statement. Jessica Polfjard.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Polfjard, and I'm a member of the European Parliament. And I'm also a member of the Environment Committee, where I'm also the Vice Co-Coordinator for the EPP group on the committee. I would like to start by thanking VEOLIA for the invitation to take part of this Green Week event. As you all know, climate and environment issues are on the very top of our European agenda, and especially in the European Parliament. And I am grateful for the opportunity to share some of my priorities and perspectives on these fields here with you today. This is clearly a timely discussion. The European Commission just published its Zero Pollution Action Plan, and in the European Parliament we have recently adopted our position and on the new Circular Economy Action Plan. For these reasons, I thought that it would make this the focus of my remarks today. The transition towards a more circular economy is one of the most important initiatives that we are faced with as the part of the Green Deal agenda. And it is good that it's getting the attention that it really deserves, because it touches on almost all aspects of our lives. We really need a larger conversation about the circular economy that involves both the public and the private sector. Because, and let me be clear, we need both of it if we're going to succeed. Sometimes I get the impression that some politicians think that they just use some magic and everything will be circular. That is quite far from the case in the real life. And if we are actually going to reach our goals, we're going to need a private sector that invests and engages in our issues considering recycling. I thought I could offer some thoughts on this work and some of my priorities. The first thing that is to be said is that the transition towards a more circular economy is something that we all should support. Our production and consumption practices are in many aspects not sustainable enough today, and this needs to change. And to make sure that our policies are well targeted, paragraph 2 in the European Parliament's report on circular economy makes clear that all policies need to be based on comprehensive impact assessments. It is also important that our circular economy policy also needs to be growth policy. You cannot have one without the other, and it's important that these two hold hands. There have been some serious concerns that the pandemic and the economic downturn that has caused effects in the EU climate ambitions. But if we can turn this transition into an economic opportunity, we will be well positioned to deliver on our ambitions. So what should our priorities be here? One thing that I have pushed for is that we need to strengthen the internal market if we are serious about a circular economy on a European level. In particular, we need to make it easier to trade in services and secondary materials. The free market does a very good job at allocating resources efficiently. This will be needed for a circular economy. There is a lot of hidden value in waste, and the key part of the circular economy agenda will be to turn that hidden value into resources. That brings me to a second point, which is clear and coherent policy framework that enables smarter production and more efficient recycling. That is why we included a clear reference on this paragraph 23 of the European Parliament's report. We need a good and predictable policy framework in order to make the transition to a circular economy. But a lot of implementation will actually be done by the private sectors and the private actors. This is one example where companies like Veolia have a very important role to play, and I'm sure that the representatives from Veolia will be able to share a lot of interesting examples of how they work with this and on a daily basis. Coming back to my previous point, a lot of work in the transition is going to be made by the private sector, and we as policymakers should constantly remind ourselves about that. With that in mind, our aim when doing legislation should be to enable innovation. Therefore, listening and trying to learn more about these industries we regulate is crucial. Finally, given that recycling of plastics will be the main focus of your discussion, I also think that it's important to say a few words about chemicals. Here we are seeing a lot of activity, both in the political and in the private spheres. From a regulatory perspective, we see a clear push to phase out or substitute dangerous chemicals, as well as an ambition to achieve so-called non-toxic material cycles. But while we naturally want to limit our exposure to harmful chemicals, we see a continued, if we not increased, demand for chemicals in line with our sustainability efforts and climate actions. There are multiple examples of this. In terms of the transition towards a more circular economy, we are seeing new demands of durability of products. Well, if we want the products to last longer, we also need to think about what that means in terms of chemical substances needed in those products. This illustrates an important point that I would like to end with, that our policies built on continuous set of different trade-offs. Once again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address these issues, and it will be interesting to listen to your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica Boivert. And let me turn now immediately to Karin Kraus, Head of Sustainable Development at VEOLIA.
I work at VEOLIA, and we are two people from VEOLIA. There is also Sven Svera. As for myself, I will talk about ecological transformation. Why should we transform and how? So I think we need to go back 5 years ago when the Paris Agreement was signed. There was a lot of enthusiasm and happiness about this Paris Agreement, but we need to recognize that since then we hadn't have such reduction in greenhouse gas. We have more pollution, biodiversity continues to be undermined, and resources are becoming scarcer. I think the COVID crisis also has renewed the feeling of urgency of taking action to deal with major ecological challenges. It is why at VEOLIA we are convinced that we need to do more about ecological transformation, and we need to have a clear vision and a clear strategy to achieve our goals. It's why we are deeply convinced that large industrial companies, states, and big cities must transform their activities and reduce their impact to respond to the growing needs of their population. Our clients need to count on powerful partners and companies with a capacity of intervention that is similar to their own. And I think one of the cases is the Green Deal, the EU Green Deal that we all know. The Green Deal sets an ambitious framework with the objective of making Europe the first climate neutral continent. It's an opportunity for companies like VEOLIA, whose activity can contribute to the creation of more powerful and sovereign green Europe, to have a model of development based on circular economy and ecological transformation. It's why we are deeply convinced that it's time to change and to move quickly on the path of ecological transformation. And Sven will give you a little bit more insight about plastic recycling. So we are deeply convinced at VEOLIA that we need to do more, but the question is how, because it's easy to say that we need to do more, but the question is how we need to do more. And we have a 4-step strategic initiative at VEOLIA. And so now I would like to focus on how we can do it to be sure that ecological transformation is at the core of all of our business. And so we have a 4-step strategy at VEOLIA. The first one is multifaceted performance. Multifaceted performance means that for managers and employees, we need to focus equally on the different type of performance, not only financial performance, but also commercial performance, social, societal, and environmental performance, all of which complement one another and form a virtuous circle. In this perspective, VEOLIA has publicly committed to 18 performance indicators, which cover the 5 types of performance I just told you: financial, commercial, social, societal, and environmental performance. The fulfillment of the objectives will be regularly monitored and evaluated by a third-party organization. It's also the basis, beginning this year, of the variable compensation for VEOLIA executive. So it's a very important step for us, a very important move to all of our top managers being incentive on multifaceted performance. It's a real move to go faster on ecological transformation. So it's the first step. The second one is to develop operations where we have some specialist expertise. So we are stepping up the pace of growth of our most complex operation to develop expertise to bring about the environmental transition. So first, we develop activities to prevent and clean up toxic pollution, such as hazardous waste and industrial process water treatment, and also soil decontamination. We develop activities that help to control the use of key resources and to fight the climate imbalance, such as energy efficiency, plastic recycling, and Spencer will tell you more deeply about plastic recycling, refuse-derived fuel production, or biodegradable waste recovery. And finally, we develop adaptation solutions to deal with climate change, such as reusing wastewater, which is a very important point for us, or seawater desalination. So it's our second step to develop a operation very specific, where we need a lot of specialty and expertise. First step is that we have some traditional activities and we reinvent our core business activities. For that, we reinforce and reinvent our core business activities, which are water, waste, and energy, to enhance their impact and performance on ecological transformation. For example, for water and wastewater services, we include innovative sludge management solution or inclusive solution to improve access to water. As regards waste, we have some new digital services, such as robots, to sort between the waste. And we have also a pricing policy established according to the quality of raw materials. And then for energy, we modernize and diversify our energy grid businesses by transforming coal-powered heating networks, especially in countries like Poland or Czech Republic, through the use of green energy, deploying new services for electricity grids and developing heating or cooling networks. So it's our first step, which is a very important one also, to develop and reinvent in a way our core business activities. And last one, it's the most important one, it's the reason why we decided to merge with Suez. It's that we need to invent and to create the innovative solutions for tomorrow. We are deeply convinced that if we want to go faster on ecological transformation, we need to invent a lot of solutions. So we are trying now to work on the answers to emerging needs in a lot of areas. The first one is health and new pollutants, as regards air quality, for example, or water also, because we saw it with the COVID crisis. We need to treat micropollutants in water. We work also on new material loops, like recycling, electric vehicle batteries, or electronic waste. We're looking also at CO2 and also on eco-design, which is very important if we want to go on ecological transformation. We are working also on food chain, for example, converting organic waste into organic fertilizer or animal proteins. We are looking also at aquaculture or urban agriculture solutions. We are obviously working also on adaptation of the climate imbalance. Like many companies, it's very important for us and much more important for us, Veolia, because of activities. We are working on new energy services like improving electric flexibility and demand management. We are developing microgrids also. And lastly, we are working on new digital services. For example, we are developing supervision centers, which are called upgrades, to be able to monitor our activities from a remote basis. So we have a lot of activities that are contributing to the ecological transformation, and we think it's our responsibility in a way at Veolia to work on it and to make our clients benefit from our expertise. So here it is for me, and after Sven will give you a more detailed example on plastic transformation and plastic recycling.
Thank you, Karin Kraus. And so we can turn indeed directly to Sven Sauer for a presentation about plastic recycling. Sven, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Frederic, and thank you, Karin, for inviting me to talk about the transformation of the plastic recycling business that Veolia is currently achieving and that will help us to meet the circular economy targets. Firstly, I would like to share my enthusiasm about what is currently happening to the plastics recycling industry, because I believe that it is really a revolution for this industry, and it's a revolution that will significantly contribute to the circularity of our economy and to the reduction of our environmental impacts. So I think it's really a thrilling moment that we are currently living in that area. in order to achieve this quite significant shift at Veolia, we have undergone a transformation of our activity simultaneously on two complementary areas. One is the technology that we use to transform plastic waste into secondary raw materials. And the other one is our business model itself. And these two areas are interdependent. They are a necessary condition to create a true circular economy, and I will explain why. In the technological domain, we are industrializing solutions to achieve two different goals. The first one is to tackle difficult to recycle plastic waste. And the second one is to produce secondary raw material, secondary raw plastic resins that have ever higher performance and safety standards. For example, we use robots, robotized and AI systems to sort our waste in our material recycling facilities. We do recover waste to energy in our plants that we use to heat the water of our washing lines for waste plastics. We develop decontamination technologies to produce better secondary raw plastics. We have industrialized some deodorization solutions to improve the plastic quality. We sort plastic flakes by order, etc., etc. And the objective is to produce high quality products that are safe, that are mechanically resistant, and with a good look and feel, which is very important for, in particular, packaging for the marketing function. But the objective is also to be able to source ever more difficult to recycle feedstock so that we can increase the volume of recycled plastics and that we can displace more virgin material. As for the recycling business model, it is usually dependent on revenues that are indexed on the oil price. And that is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable industry if you have this type of business model, because the oil price is very volatile and it's completely independent from our recycling costs. And in these conditions, it's impossible to build an industry that produces at the same time quality products over the long term and that supports a growing demand. But there are some very good news. Since about mid-2019, we have started to see for recycled PET bottle grade that the prices are decoupled, or have been at least since then decoupled from the oil price. When the oil price has dropped, the recycled PET price has not significantly changed. And when the oil price went up again, the recycled PET price remained stable. So that's very good for the sustainability of the industry. This has happened because the end users that buy the recycled resins have taken commitments to increase their recycled content. And it has also happened because we have been able to provide quality products at the required specifications for the end use with our technology. And we have agreed together with the end users, with the end user industry, on sales prices that are only dependent on our real costs, not on a virgin material index. In a way, we have materialized the environmental value of the recycled plastics, which was not the case before. Before that, recycled plastics were considered a low quality product. Today, we value the environmental value that they have. This has mainly happened on one particular plastic grade, which is a grade where we can produce food grade products, but others are following. And it is a huge achievement because it means that we can effectively decouple the recycling economy from the fossil economy. Now, there are many complementary attached benefits to the development of such a decoupled economy. The first one is, of course, the circularity. No more waste is eliminated and fossil materials are displaced. A second one is the local employment. By nature, waste feedstock is local. It's available where waste is produced. And so with recycling industry, we develop a locally embedded industry and we develop employee skills that are preparing our future. Recycling is also reducing our climate impact because by nature, it requires less energy than to extract and transform crude oils into polymers. and less energy is less CO2 emissions. And finally, recycling reduces the leakage of waste into the environment, in particular into the oceans, because the value that we create by recycling it attracts a stable waste collection organization. Basically, you could say you don't want to waste your waste when it has a value. So on this basis, at Veolia, we have developed approximately 32 plastic recycling plants to date on our geographical platforms in Europe and in Asia. That's more than 500,000 tons of capacity of recycled plastics production. And we have projects on all other continents, in Australia, in the Middle East, in Africa, and in the Americas. I mean, North America and Latin America. So in conclusion, our journey is about technology that enables a sustainable business model, which will enable growing circular plastics economy. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Sven-Zara. Really impressive that you managed to decouple the price of your recycled plastics from the actual price of oil. This is a real achievement. Let me turn now to Michaelis Papadogiannakis from the European Commission's DG Environment. Michaelis, the floor is yours.
I would like first to thank you for inviting me in this very interesting meeting to see how industry and how the European Parliament and how the local government sees our Zero Pollution Action Plan. It's very interesting to listen to your views and to use them for our further work. Now, my topic is the EU plastic pollution policies and how this leads and is linked to the European Green Deal. Let me start with the following remark. More than 10 years before anybody had realized the importance of the problem of plastic pollution of the seas, and before anybody had started discussing how to solve it, we adopted in the European Union the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which was the first ever legally binding instrument, not only in Europe, by the way, requiring that quantities and composition of marine litter do not cause harm to the marine and coastal environment. It also required that quantities and impacts of marine litter are monitored and assessed, and that measures are taken to reduce them. Now, of course, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive does not deal only with marine litter, but marine litter is one of the 11 quality parameters of the marine environment, the so-called descriptors. But even before the Marine Strategy Framework Directive in 2008, we had the waste management legislation in the European Union, we had the wastewater the management legislation, and the Port Reception Facilities Directive to avoid that the waste is dumped by ships at sea legally. And of course, we had the chemicals legislation. Now, these policy instruments, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, waste and wastewater legislation, and port reception facilities and chemicals, were and remain, as a matter of fact, the pillars of our policies to prevent marine litter and to protect ourselves from marine litter. So, but again, all these years have passed, and of course, these legal instruments have evolved, and other policy instruments have been added to those. You have probably heard about the strategy for plastics, which is a more global policy. It doesn't concern only the plastic pollution. It concerns the whole life cycle of plastics, from extraction from materials to production, use, and end-of-life management. So strategy for plastics, a very comprehensive strategy, which, by the way, gave rise to the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which we all know, I guess. So, so we have had, as I said, a development of the policy instruments. Last year, we had, under the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, the adoption of a landmark threshold value for beach litter. That is to say, EU member states agreed that there should be no more than 20 litter items for every 100 meters of coastline, which is a very ambitious but still realistic goal to be achieved in the coming years. So progress has been done, but we did not, how shall I say, stay and rest on our laurels. We now have the European Green Deal, which is directly relevant for marine litter for a number of reasons. For the circular economy aspects, we already heard how the circular economy is linked to marine litter. It is also linked through its chapter for microplastics and through the requirements for extended producer responsibility. It is linked through the biodiversity strategy, because marine litter directly affects biodiversity, and the Council of the European Union, in its conclusions on the biodiversity strategy, mentioned explicitly the need to tackle plastic pollution of the seas. The European Green Deal is also relevant for marine litter because it is expected to steer national budgets towards greener policies. It is expected to generate more, let's say, funds for addressing plastic pollution over and above the funds that we already make available at EU level through a number of projects to solve this problem. Last but not least, the European Green Deal includes the Zero Pollution Action Plan. We had the communication recently, it was published, and we could all see how relevant it is for marine litter, because it covers all sectors, activity sectors generating pollution. It covers all topics like health, not only environment, health, sustainable consumption and production. The Zero Pollution Action Plan puts emphasis on implementation and enforcement and monitoring, which are also very important aspects, sometimes, let's say, neglected, because, once policy piece is adopted, then we take it for granted. This is unfortunately not always the case, far from being the case. And last but not least, the Zero Pollution Action Plan includes targets for reduction of marine litter, for reducing plastic litter at sea by 50%, and for reducing the input of microplastics to waterways by 30%, and all this by 2030. Impossible? We don't think so. We do think it's feasible, but of course, all possible efforts need to be put together and need to be undertaken. Now, this short, let's say, summary would not be complete if we did not mention our international engagement and commitment, which starts with bilateral and regional, let's say, contacts and exchanges in our neighborhood, in the Mediterranean, Black Sea, the Baltic, and the Northeast Atlantic. We have a number of projects, as I said, bilaterally with neighboring countries or with the regional sea conventions. All of them have regional action plans against marine litter that we actively support financially and technically. But our international involvement extends far beyond the neighborhood. It has a global dimension, and on this occasion, I would like to underline and repeat that we, the European Union and its member states, support the idea of a possible global convention against plastic pollution, a convention which will complement existing efforts under the International Maritime Organization, under the Basel Convention for Transboundary Movements of Waste, under the Regional Sea Convention. So such an agreement would complement what we already have, and at the same time cover the gaps that exist in terms of covering the whole life cycle of plastics, from production, from design of plastic products to the end of life management, and preventing and reducing pollution, like our strategy for plastic does. Thank you for your attention.
Right, thanks a lot, Michaelis Papadoioannakis. Let us turn now to José Luis Sanchez. He's Chief Executive of the TorrePET project in Spain, and he sent us a pre-recorded video address. José Luis Sanchez, the floor is yours now.
Hello to you all. My name is José Luis Saez, and I'm the General Manager of TorrePET. TorrePET is a PET recycling company based in the southwest of Spain and has been performing its activity since 2005. TorrePET is the first, and up to now, the only one recycling company capable of accomplishing the full life cycle of a bottle in the Iberian Peninsula. Because since we obtained in 2015 the positive IFSA opinion, which allow our customers to use our recycled resin for the food packaging, no company in this zone has been doing the complete cycle of the life of bottle, taking them from the sorting centers and recycling and supplying the resin again to produce new bottles. We are a Veolia company, and we are included in the global strategy of Veolia about the commitment with the environment and the circular economy. In Veolia, we work to improve access, preserve, and renew resources, water, energy, and waste. That is what we understand by circular economy. Veolia is a company committed to sustainable development. TorrePET is a mechanical recycling company and running in a non-stop production process, having a workforce over 100 in different departments: production, maintenance, quality, administration, and logistics. The current TorrePET recycling production capacity is 40,000 tons per year of packaging waste, producing 20,000 tons per year of recycled food-grade PET pellets. But the next year, we will increase our capacity in a 50%. The current capacity represents the 35% of the PET post-consumer packaging produced by the sorting centers from the yellow container in Spain. And the future extended capacity will achieve the 50% of the total amount of the packaging collection by the yellow bin in Spain. TorrePET by Veolia has innovative advanced technology which has enabled to be at the cutting edge of the PET recycling. Since the origins, the production capacity of the company has never stopped growing and has offering the highest standard food grade quality. Today, the company is a national benchmark thanks to the economic and human efforts made. You can see it in the next video.
Veolia, a través de su marca TorrePET, se dedica a la producción de granza de PET reciclado de grado alimentario de la más alta calidad. Fundada en 2005, es la primera compañía de la península ibérica capaz de realizar el ciclo de vida completo de una botella, por lo que se trata de un referente en el ámbito del reciclado de plástico PET. Ubicada en el municipio de Torremejía, Badajoz, TorrePET by Veolia permite hacer un uso racional de los recursos y fomenta el desarrollo de la economía circular. Con una plantilla de más de 100 colaboradores, trabaja entre otros clientes para 5 de los 7 principales envasadores españoles. Además, gestiona 40.000 toneladas de residuos plásticos al año, con lo que produce 20.000 toneladas de granza de PET reciclado con calidad alimentaria para botellas y 5.000 toneladas de materia prima secundaria. El proceso comienza realizando la separación de los envases PET recibidos de los ecoparques mediante selectores ópticos para obtener fracciones de PET transparente, PET color y tapones de HDPE. Cada una de estas 3 variedades se procesa en una línea diferente. Todos los materiales separados sufren el mismo tratamiento de reciclado, molienda, lavado y extrusión para conseguir pequeñas piezas de plástico de aproximadamente 2 milímetros. De esta forma, damos una segunda vida a los residuos al convertirlos de nuevo en materia prima para fabricar nuevos envases. Veolia tiene como misión desarrollar el acceso a los recursos, preservarlos y renovarlos mediante el fomento de la economía circular. En TorrePET, Veolia recupera y recicla la mayor cantidad posible de recipientes que existen en el mercado para la reutilización de plástico PET. De esta forma, los residuos se convierten en recursos y se fomenta el desarrollo sostenible y la conservación del medio ambiente.
As you saw, TorrePET has 4 independent production lines to ensure the quality of the final product, reduce emissions, and optimize waste management. Each of these lines is dedicated to manufacturing different products. The process starts with the separation of PET packages received from the recycling points by optical selection to obtain fraction of transparent PET, color PET, and HDPE bottle caps. All the materials separated undergo the same process of recycling grinding, ashing, and extrusion to obtain small bits of plastic about 2 millimeters long. The flakes produced in the line 4 are used to generate energy recovery. The waste that is not suitable for any of the 3 presenting lines is converted into new resources, and development in the circular economy is encouraged. The PET post-consumer packaging fraction in Spain is formed by all the PET packaging placed in the market by the food company, regardless the color, opaque, non-food packaging, multi-layer trays, everything is mixed. This compelled the Spanish recycler to make a bigger effort in terms of selection and the generation of big amounts of production residues that go again to the sorting centers. For next year, the plastic packaging placed in the market must be recyclable or reusable. So the RPT is the best solution to guarantee the circular packaging. RPT is capable of reducing the carbon footprint by up to 77% compared to the virgin PET, glass, aluminum, and brick, which is why separated collection of bottles of beverage will be required, 77 in 2025, and the 90% in 2030, requiring that this bottle incorporate at least a 25 recycled material rate by 2025 and 30% in 2030. But with the recycling capacity installed in Spain, only the 60% of European requirements can be covered. Just to meet the first objective of the 25% of recycled plastic in bottles, the needs, according to the current consumption, will be the double that nowadays could be recycled, with concrete measures to improve the efficiency of both the collection and the recycling process in the Spanish market. These measures include as all packaging companies, PET packaging waste management, public administration, and the consumers. Eco-design is the key in packaging companies, monomaterial packaging, avoid the use of metallic material enclosures, opaque or colored packaging, eliminate the ink printing of the material, and easily removal of the labels. It's necessary to improve the separation and management of the PET packaging waste, both the sorting and collection process of the material to achieve higher quality, as well as in the improvement of technical specification of the recovered material. For this, among other things, we have to separate the containers correctly from the source in our home before introduce them in the yellow container and be properly sorted in the collection plants. Public administration must encourage investment in the production of RPT by modifying the tax of non-reusable virgin plastic container, supporting and facilitating the investment necessary to reduce the RPT pellets. Because of the high quality of the food safety demanded by the customer is the same in all the countries, the bigger contamination of the Spanish PET bales has direct impact also in the quality, so we need better decontamination equipment. We think that there is not an ecological collection system in Spain that should be improved in the same direction than the rest of European countries.
Okay, I think we are back now in Brussels, so to speak. I will immediately now give the floor to the next speaker, and that is Francisco Peñato, the Mayor of Torremejía in Spain, who also sent us a pre-recorded statement. Francisco Peñato, the floor is yours.
Buenos días, soy Francisco Trinidad, alcalde de Torremejía. En el año 2005 se detecta por parte de los fundadores de Extremadura TorrePET SL la creciente necesidad de solucionar la gestión de los residuos sólidos urbanos, la cual está impulsando el desarrollo de sistemas alternativos de reciclado y valoración de los envases usados. El PET es sin duda uno de los materiales de envasado que más había incrementado su consumo en la década del 2000 y por sus características era y es especialmente interesante para reciclar y existiendo una importante demanda del producto reciclado para diversas aplicaciones. Los promotores de Extremadura TorrePET SL detectaron en su momento que el reciclado del PET post-consumo era una realidad viable, tanto técnica como medioambientalmente, ya que daba lugar a un producto con un importante valor añadido, contribuyendo a disminuir la generación de residuos. De este modo, se adelanta el concepto, aún casi desconocido, de la economía verde y circular, reducir, reutilizar, reciclar. TorrePET inicia su andadura en febrero del 2006, con la consecución de la correspondiente licencia de apertura municipal, contando con unas instalaciones edificadas de 4.860 metros cuadrados sobre una parcela total de 29.860 metros. Desde su comienzo, TorrePET ha sido una industria líder en el sector del reciclaje de envasados usados, colaborando de manera efectiva a la conservación del ecosistema y el medio ambiente de Extremadura, a la vez que ha contribuido al dinamismo industrial de la zona y a la creación de empleo y riqueza. Prueba del éxito del modelo son las sucesivas ampliaciones de las instalaciones, que actualmente cuentan con 10.036 metros cuadrados edificados sobre casi 60.000 metros de superficie total, planteándose una ampliación de 2.000 metros cuadrados con una compra de 25.000 metros más, llegando a un total de casi 90.000 metros cuadrados. La colaboración de las autoridades, tanto locales como autonómicas, ha sido fundamental para el éxito del modelo y su continuo crecimiento. Una industria de estas características lleva aparejada la necesidad de maquinaria, instalaciones auxiliares y medios de producción de características especiales, que necesitan de mayores superficies, tanto construidas como de almacenaje. El Ayuntamiento de Torremejía, siempre desde el respeto a las normas vigentes, supo captar desde su primer momento las especiales necesidades de esta industria, colaborando en todo momento a la obtención de permisos y calificaciones necesarias para la implantación y sus sucesivas ampliaciones de la industria. TorrePET es sin duda la industria más potente de la localidad de Torremejía, generando más de 120 empleos directos y 300 indirectos, gran parte de los cuales emplean a ciudadanos del municipio. Esto supone un efecto incentivador para la ciudadanía que redunda en incremento la conciencia y predisposición al reciclaje, creando un círculo virtuoso en el que el ciudadano comprueba de forma patente que el reciclaje le da un beneficio, no solo medioambientalmente, sino también económico, y esa conciencia contribuye a aumentar el reciclaje, ayuda al medio ambiente y a la propia industria. Además de las futuras ampliaciones y mejoras técnicas previstas en el horizonte de los próximos años, que aumentarán la capacidad de reciclaje de la planta Extremadura TorrePET, ha iniciado la colaboración con dos pequeñas empresas de la zona para el desarrollo de un sistema de aprovechamiento de sus propios residuos no valorizados, con reutilización y reaprovechamiento de estos residuos en novedosos productos para el sector de la construcción. TorrePET no solo contribuye ya a alcanzar los objetivos legislativos de la Unión Europea para el 2030, sino que nuevamente se adelanta a su tiempo para conseguir reutilizar y reciclar el reciclaje. TorrePET es un ejemplo de éxito que podría ser aplicado en otros lugares de España y de la Unión Europea. Es importante la financiación de los fondos estructurales del 2021 al 2027 y la recuperación medioambiental de la región en general. Es importante una cooperación territorial o medioambiental europea más amplia con Elbas y Portugal a través del futuro Interreg. Ya para finalizar, agradecer a la DG Environment de la Comisión Europea esta oportunidad de hablar sobre este importante tema de la reducción de la contaminación durante la Semana Verde 2021, la Green Week.
Let me turn immediately to Xavier Boivert from the Municipality of Mordelles in France. Xavier, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And well, I have quite an heavy responsibility to speak for my counterparts from UDiTE and every country. I'm speaking from a French point of view. Maybe I can give my point of view on these topics, which need to be introduced by the fact that I'm quite new in the ecological transition matters, science, I would say. And well, I'm still looking into some answers too. But well, we have developed in Mordelles a project like many others towns in Europe now, and this project is needs to be paired by some people in the administration, and we decided to have the help of one of the local experts in these ecological matters, and we hired him, and we are developing now many local actions. So maybe I can begin with these matters, or maybe I can react to many things I heard and are very interesting.
Thanks, Xavier. So, I mean, you're welcome to, you know, explain now the kind of local initiatives that you've taken from your point of view from the Municipality of Mordelles. I understand that you've been taking some initiatives from that perspective. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah. So, well, what's interesting in the local government action is that we are able to act in almost every way. So we have for these years to come many actions scheduled with citizens and with our own means. So to begin with something, we are creating what we call Maison de la Transition, which is a home of the transition, home in the Johannesburg conference perspective, which is the whole area matter, and not only some building, you know, like we could say house, but it's really home, like we like to say. This project is also including a house, which is somewhere everybody will be able to understand matters and to share capabilities and ideas, and eager to do things. Even companies like VEOLIA could come to this new place, and for us it's like you know, we had the church which for cycles was the center of the common lives, the communities. Then we had the local government townhouse, and now we want to create these transition houses, like new communities centers. So first we have this one, and we have another big project which is almost ready now. It's like a recovery of the water quality. So it's not like a museum for information, but it's a museum for experience. Water matters, and water experiences from each of us perspectives. So in this big project, there is many partners, including fishing associations, many others, administrations from state, from regional and department in French. So there is many partners with us, and many, I think many interests will come from even private sector. But we have to go to the end of this project, and now we are seeing the end of this project at the end of the year. So maybe I can explain more precisely.
Yes, of course, Xavier, explain. Maybe you can also tell us a bit more about the kind of day-to-day challenges that you're facing with the ecological transition.
Yeah, from a local government chief officer point of view, maybe, because what I'm beginning to understand is that we have at least three kind of challenges to cope with. We have the need to manage the relations with the elected members, and probably a specific role of advising as professional to the relevant course of actions. And this means we have to become transition experts, which is not what we are trained for. So it's a real challenge for us, because we are discovering, like everyone, what are the matters, and we have the responsibility to advise elected members on these matters. So it's a real problem, a really essential problem. But well, we can form ourselves. We can discuss with VEOLIA and the UDiTE, and everyone is trying to do what's best now. We have also to deal with the administration as leaders of the administration. So it's not easy to explain things when you are not that sure that this is the right way. And there is a third role I think it's important to fulfill, which is to get to all the local leaders and try to make everyone lining up on the same goals. Maybe not being sure that this is the best goals possible or ever, but starting to see everything in the same direction is quite important. And we can, as local executives, change the way everyone is looking the problems and the matters, the topics.
So Xavier Boivert, we're at Green Week, which is organized by the European Commission. I understand from what you're saying is that local authorities need some more guidance, maybe from the national level, but maybe also from the European level in how to achieve these things. Can you maybe explain what you as a local authority would appreciate seeing coming, whether from your national government or from the European level?
Well, we need everyone, and we need especially, yes, direction from European government and national government. What we need is both clear directions, means, and maybe resources, but also a free path. You know, an ability to build things our own way. And I'm convinced with the specialist I used to work on these matters for several months now. I'm convinced that we have on a local basis many means that doesn't need a government, national or European governments help, or even contract abilities, or contracts, even legal measures are not that important here, because nowadays we can ask citizens to act. We spend some time with the waste generation, which is a great problem. We all know it, and some of the solution is obviously to recycle and to be able to have a complete cycle, which was very interesting to hear. But maybe the most important is to lower our waste generation. So here on the local basis, we can have real places and opportunities to discuss with citizens, and to find the real way to reduce, this waste generation. We don't need at any time, at any matters, the national and the European help. I think it's more than this, the local ability to work together that will give us the real way. And I will just add something. We don't have time to do it anyway at the national scale. We must do it at the local scale. It's almost too late, so we have to do it now. So when I see the project on TorrePET, it's very enthusiastic. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Xavier Boivert, for this testimony. I think we can now move to the panel discussion, and I will keep my camera off for the time being, so excuse me for that. So we've seen during the presentations that local initiatives can be a catalyst for change. We've seen TorrePET, and we've heard just Xavier Boivert now telling us what kind of local initiatives are being launched. But local initiatives, they can also sometimes lead to potentially to fragmentation of the EU's internal market. So how can the policymakers make sure that these local initiatives fit together as part of a coherent whole and do not end up pulling in different directions? I think this could be a question for Michaelis Papadoyonakis. So I'd be curious to hear your views on this, because this is typically something the Commission cares about. So Michaelis, can you say a few words about that? And I understand you need to leave soon, so we're eager to hear from you.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Now, as I tried to show in my short presentation, we have already at our disposal policy instruments which cover emissions of litter from all sources on land and at sea. And this is important to take into account, because some people believe that litter is only an issue of land-based sources, and forget about shipping, about fishing and aquaculture. So then we need to apply the same principle of integrated, let's say, an holistic approach towards sources for microplastics, because we have microplastics in products and we have microplastics from products like tires, like textiles and pre-production plastic pellets. So we need to take an holistic view on which are the sources, which are the pathways, which are the impacts, and then we need to address them with the appropriate measures, which means measures, of course, of technical nature, but measures also of financial or fiscal nature, because we need to act both at the or at least facilitate action, both at the level of investment, because we need investments in waste management, wastewater treatment, port reception facilities, and so on, but also to send the right signals to consumers and to producers through extended producer responsibility, for example. I don't know whether I replied to your question or whether you need some more detail.
Well, that was interesting. Thank you very much. But maybe you can expand a little bit more on the risk of potential fragmentation of the internal market. Do you see this as a risk, the fact that there are increasingly some bottom-up initiatives coming on issues like recycling or the ecological transition, generally speaking? How do you perceive this from the European Commission? Do you see this as a risk or as an opportunity?
Well, honestly, I would prefer to have my colleagues who are more specialized on waste management and product design. But I will attempt a reply because you know, this is not an issue. It's not a new issue. The environmental design of products, which is directly relevant for, let's say, for the internal market, because if we have requirements on the design of products, then we might have fragmentation of the market, as you mentioned. At the same time, what some people forget to mention is that better design means cheaper products, because you use less resources, you have less environmental impacts that you need to address. So your cost, also your production cost, also might fall. And then better design means also a competitive advantage, because it's not just Europe, it's not only Europe who is interested in let's say, reduced environmental impact of products, easier recycling, easier separation, and so on and so forth. The whole world, and the companies who will be at the forefront of ecological design for better recycling, I believe have a competitive advantage. Thank you.
So if I may then ask you a follow-up question. If I understand correctly, you're saying maybe a combination of bottom-up approaches, but also some top-down policies, some kind of harmonization in things like recycling is needed, and a combination of both? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Take, for example, the design of fishing gear. Probably you know that in the Single-Use Plastic Directive, we have said that there will be a European standard to, let's say, to determine what is a recyclable fishing gear. Now, I don't think personally we would have this standard without legislation. At the same time, the standard is not let's say, a regulatory requirement, so it will leave the necessary flexibility to producers so that they develop their products. So I think this is a good example of the interplay between legislation and industry, let's say, innovation.
Okay, thank you very much, Yanis Papadogiannakis. Let me return briefly to you, Xavier Boivert, for a reaction about what Yanis just said about this combination of bottom-up and top-down approaches. Is that something that you would welcome from where you stand in your municipality of Mordelles? Are you also calling for, in a way, some more top-down initiatives coming from Brussels, for example?
This is very important because, yes, thank you for bringing this up. Top-down and bottom-up approaches are both necessary, because bottom-up is, in a complex world, obvious, the only way we can do things, but without top-down policy explanation and guarantee everyone is doing with the same rules, we won't be able to do it. Maybe we will be able to launch things, but we won't be able to make it last for 1 year or 10 years. So we need to have a long time ability to see where we are going, and everyone with the same rules. I'm convinced of it, and everyone in the local government is asking for it, even when we are saying it's too heavy or too constraining. It's still necessary. I believe it. Yes, and we are in the local government as administration leaders. We are eager for it, because without this, we can't explain the rules to our local political leaders, and we can't even explain to citizens why we have to do this and this. So they are yes, obvious for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Spencer, maybe your views on this combination of bottom-up and top-down approaches. We've seen in the videos, and we've heard from Xavier Boivert, the fantastic things that are happening on the local level. But how do you see that also being framed at a higher level, potentially globally, or at European level, or national level?
Yeah, I think really local industry is what we are developing when we talk about waste management. And as I explained, waste is local, and that's where you create employment, that's where you create future skills, etc. So that really, I mean, a big advantage. And when you were asking what are the drawbacks of fractionating the territories, I really see more benefits in being local than issues. But I completely agree with Xavier Boivert on the fact that we need global rules. And we've seen some of the issues recently with, for example, exporting your waste into other countries. We've exported waste a lot to China, and in fact, we have exported pollution. And now, since 2018, it's prohibited by China, and now we've exported waste to Turkey. And Turkey has taken actions just 1 week ago on certain types of waste to stop them from being imported, and other examples in Southeast of Asia. So the waste is a local issue. We need to deal with it locally, but we need rules which are consistent between territories, so that there is some equality between the countries, in particular in Europe, where distances are short. So that there is equality between the different territories.
Thank you, Sven. Maybe I can ask you a follow-up on the on these bans that were implemented by China more recently. You mentioned Turkey putting restrictions as well. Do you think this is more of an opportunity or more of a challenge right now for countries in the European Union?
I think it's an opportunity, clearly, because it pushes us and other waste exporting countries to, like the US, to develop their own solutions. So it forces us to go into the circular economy. If we cannot export our pollution, which is, I mean, also ethically not a good idea, but if we cannot do this, we need to deal with the issue ourselves. And so it forces us to invest in finding the good solutions. Previously, we said we were recycling and we were just exporting our waste. Today, we are forced to really recycle our waste. So for me, it's a huge opportunity for developing the circular economy.
Thank you, Sven. Let me turn to Ronnie Fredericks. How do you see that all fitting together?
Well, you know, there are different layers of government, and one of the layers are the municipalities in the cities. And it's always a question of what do we allocate to the lower level, and what do we allocate to the higher level of governmental departments. What is the main task of our municipalities, knowing that 2/3 of our municipalities in Europe are quite small? We have the bigger metropolitan areas, and that's quite evident that they have the capacity to do more than the smaller municipalities. So it's a question of subsidiarity. What will we do best on the lower level, and what do we best on the higher level? Because of course there's an economic aspect of collecting and recycling waste, and that's something that our business partners can where business partners can contribute to it. I think that at the lower level, the task for the municipality is to sensitize their councils, their citizens, and their inhabitants how to deal with this new item, and that a new form of cooperation has to be installed between municipalities to have this more economic. How would I say that it would be in the best, will be handled in the best way in the economic way. So it's a need of cooperation between municipalities, but also between municipalities and the industry. And then we have to see where the national government can add something, and where Europe can add something to achieve the objectives that were set down.
Thank you, Ronnie Fredericks. And so just to make clear, you're Executive Director at UDiTE. A question now about plastics, because it was one of the focuses of that event. And so I'll turn again to Sven Sauer on this one. Some of the speakers mentioned that the fight against plastic pollution was a big priority of the previous Commission, especially with this ban that was adopted on single-use plastics, or a certain number of them. Sven Sauer, from where you stand, what has been the impact of this on industry? Has it brought real change in your view? And maybe more generally, do you think bans like these are a good idea and should be extended maybe?
Yes, I think waste management is really pushed by regulation. There would be no good waste management without regulation, because then you would go to the easier solutions. So waste management is on many layers. You're talking about bans, which could be bans on import in other countries, but also bans on landfilling some types of waste, for example. You also have regulations on setting targets for recycling. So that's something that will improve our capacity or force us to better have selective collections and sorting centers, etc. And then you also have a new set of regulations on recycled content, which is forcing the industry, the packaging industry, for example, to use recycled products. And that's also extremely important, because on one side you have the feedstock that's created by your recycling objectives, and on the other side you need to have industries that are willing to buy these products, these recycled products, and to give value to it. So all this combination between bans, between recycling targets, and between recycled content obligations are extremely important. And that's, I think, a great success of Europe. Other countries in the world are a bit imitating what's done in Europe. Some are going forward, like California, for example, has a very strong regulation on that, but not many countries have all these regulations that we have in Europe to make progress. So I think, yes, that's very important to develop the recycling industry.
And Sven Sauer, actually the European Commission is preparing legislation towards that end. There are rules currently being prepared to have mandatory levels of recycled plastic, for example, in new products. This can be a challenge, of course, for certain sectors, especially when you're talking about food grade plastics. That can be very, very sensitive. What are your thoughts about this? The Commission is literally drawing up that proposal right now, but it hasn't come out yet. How do you think such kind of legislation should be put forward, and the best way it could be implemented afterwards?
Well, I think, of course, as you said, you need to ask for things that are feasible. So if you cannot impose food grade for a type of plastics that would not be recyclable in current conditions into food grade products, of course. But what you also see is that, in particular for the PET bottles, like the ones that are being recycled in TorrePET, many companies have taken commitments that go above the targets of the European legislation, which is 25% in 2025 and a bit more in 2030. And so some of these big brands have already committed to 50%, for example, of recycled content in 2025. So it's some kind of a basis level that is given by the European legislation for all companies, and that is pushing all companies forward. So yes, again, it's not the only thing we need to do. We also need to have recycling objectives to produce the feedstock. What we see today on the market is the lack of feedstock. And companies that need to comply with the 2025 regulation start to be a bit worried about, will they find enough product to be able to have this recycled content in their waste. So those parts of the regulation are extremely important. And I think also what is in your question is that it's complicated to play with these rules, and you need to make sure it works out well at the end. And I think for the moment we are on the good way to do that.
Thank you. Let me turn quickly to Xavier Boivert about a reaction We heard Svensson basically endorsing this idea of imposing bans on the export of unsorted waste like plastic, saying this is an opportunity. Can you maybe, from your point of view, from your municipality, say what has been the impact of these initiatives like export bans? Has this had a big impact from where you stand? And then looking forward with the forthcoming initiatives coming out of the European Commission to impose minimum levels of recycled plastics into new products, what would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is very, very interesting because my answer to many people criticizing European or even national regulations is often very often that this is the wrong way to see it, because regulations makes us very smart or smart. So this is two things I want to say about it. First, we locally we don't have maybe the same way to see the impact, but we see it. But as was explaining Ronnie Fredericks about subsidiarity, we are very agile. You know, the agility is very easier when you are smaller, and when we are on local matters. So we are perfectly able to deal with it, but we don't see it with the big picture. So maybe it's easier on this way too. But there is also a common error to consider that private or public contractors are not able to see the big picture, and they are. So I think Veolia is perfectly able to see the opportunity in these regulations, and maybe in Europe and in France, because I know France better, we are better prepared to meet the world when we are able to see our own regulations. I don't think I'm very clear about it, but I don't see if you. I don't know if you see what I mean, but I think we are. It's more difficult to be prepared to our own regulations, but when we are to meet with Chinese and Americans and everyone, which are on other cultures, other market rules, we are prepared to their own markets, and it's quite a mystery to me. But we know how to do it.
Okay, thanks, Xavier Boivert. I think we're now getting close to the end of this event. And before we close, I would ask each one of you in turn to say in a few words, a couple of sentences, what you would like our audience to take home with them. What would be your main message to our audience? And we can start with you, maybe, Xavier Boivert.
Well, yes, I would keep in mind the enthusiasm of Svensson, because it was, yes, refreshing, and maybe remind everyone that we don't have time left to think about it. We must act now. So this is a very important thing to talk about it and to act about it. So yes, it's a good news. European Commission is with UDiTE and every partners able to do such a great webinar.
So maybe we still have with us Michaelis Papadogiannakis. If you are still with us, maybe you can share some concluding thoughts very briefly.
Well, from my side, from the Commission side, I would say that for us it is very important that stakeholders, let's say, which are directly involved in solving the everyday problems associated with our policies are informed of our policies, and of course approve their content and contribute to their development, because the policy is not just a dead letter, it's not a piece of paper. It's something that we have to act upon, and something that which has to develop according to the circumstances. And we are very grateful to see that industry, leading industry partners in environmental technologies like VEOLIA, and also very important social actors like the local authorities are so actively involved, and hopefully will also be in the future in the implementation of the Zero Pollution Action Plan.
Thank you, Michaelis. Let me turn now to Sven Sora for some concluding thoughts from your end, or main messages.
You know, VEOLIA is a French company, even if we do most of our turnover in other countries, in Europe and outside of Europe. And a big part of our growth is far away from Europe. So we learn things and from many countries and from many cultures and what's happening everywhere in the world. But regarding circular economy, which is the main topic of the Green Deal and of the Green Week this week, we are really, learning from Europe and from what Europe wants to do, and exporting this knowledge all over the world. So for me, really, it's maybe the message would be this opportunity for Europe through the growth of circular economy, which is exactly the Green Deal objective.
Just as a sort of the organizer and facilitator of this workshop, one of the thoughts I've picked up listening to you all is obviously the regulatory impacts are important with the top-down. The grassroots initiatives that Xavier has talked about are absolutely fundamental, but given that we're in Green Week and it's 2021, we're looking towards the next 7-year financing program for the European Union. It's backed up, of course, by Next Generation EU now. So there's amazing opportunities here, I think, in the context of Green Week, and maybe later in the year as part of the European Week of Regions and Cities, to really push hard for that Green Deal taking on a real aspect, because we've got small local authorities like the ones that Ronnie has been working for, Xavier is working for, Paul is working for, which do need to collaborate. They do need to come together beyond their boundaries. They do need to understand how the European Investment Bank will be working in this domain as far as loans and repayable finances are concerned. But equally, the role of the European Regional Development Fund going forwards is vital in this aspect, in terms of some of its thematic priorities in relation to this particular area. And of course, that extra firefight that's coming from that Next Generation EU package is certainly something which I want local authorities, big and small, to be aware of on the ground, so that they get themselves ready to work with partners like VEOLIA in the private sector to bring those partnerships together and work beyond their administrative boundaries to produce solutions that really do drive change. So I think the funding aspect is important, and we're at an important point here as we look towards the 2021-2027 period, Frederic.
Okay, thanks for reminding us indeed of those new opportunities coming up with the opportunities for funding. To conclude now from UDiTE, I think we can turn to Paul Gatt.
First of all, I would like to congratulate everyone for this very interesting webinar. I would like to thank you all. I don't have anything else to say to add with whatever has been said already. So I thank you all, and let's work towards this zero pollution, towards the 2050 initiative by the European Union. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks. I think this wraps up today's event. A big thanks to VEOLIA and UDiTE for supporting this event, and to the European Commission as well for hosting this panel discussion as part of Green Week. A big thanks, of course, to our panelists for your time, and to our viewers for following us. We hope to see you again soon at Green Week. Until then, enjoy your day and stay safe. Bye for now.